Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Hot Topics in Human Milk Banking with Summer Kelly. We are thrilled to have you join us. Before we get started, I'd like to review a few things to help you maximize your webinar experience. There are tabs at the bottom right of the webinar window. Event handouts, including a copy of the presentation and a certificate of attendance with continuing education credit, can be found in the Apps tab. Other tabs include links, polls, questions, and chat. You can submit your questions to our presenter throughout the presentation by typing them into the Questions tab. During the Q&A portion of the webinar, we will answer the questions related to the webinar topic. If you have technical issues, you can click the Help button on the lower left of your screen. I would now like to introduce today's speaker. Summer Kelly is the Executive Director of the Mother's Milk Bank of the Western Great Lakes. She holds a BSN from Rush University and an MS in Biology from Northeastern Illinois University, where she researched the bioactive components of human milk. Summer serves as past president of HMBANA, where she also chairs the accreditation committee. Thank you, Summer, for joining us today. I'll turn it over to you to start the webinar.
Thank you, Jess. I am so excited that we get to hang out together today to talk about milk banking. So thank you for taking time out of your busy days taking care of patients to hang out with me and 500 of our closest friends in lactation to learn about milk banking. These are my disclosures, and as previously stated, I work at Mother's Milk Bank of the Western Great Lakes, a nonprofit milk bank serving all of Illinois and Wisconsin. These are our objectives, but our real objective is to have a ton of fun and to learn about the ways that nonprofit milk banks serve their communities. And so I promise behind the scenes look at milk banking, and it doesn't get, realer than this. The dedicated team right here at Milk Bank WGL that processes and pasteurizes milk on a daily basis, screens donors, engages with the community. So special thanks to my entire team here at the Milk Bank and to all of the amazing milk bankers around the world who promote, nonprofit milk banking and who really have a major role in infant nutrition all throughout the country and the world. And we're rooted in a model that's called an integrative model of milk banking. So what this does is ensure that A, we're nonprofit and no one profits off the commodification of human milk, and B, that we're fully integrated into the communities that we serve. And I'd like to call your attention to the A here in bank for awareness and advocacy. Breastfeeding promotion and supporting parents to reach their breastfeeding goals is paramount in this model of nonprofit milk banking. And so all nonprofit milk banks really rally behind the work that all of you guys do every day to support moms and babies. So thank you. So we are a proud member of the Human Milk Banking Association of North America, which we call HMBANA. And this is an international organization that unifies milk banks throughout the United States and Canada. We were founded in 1985, and we have a 40-year safety record. So HMBANA sets the safety standards and quality standards for milk banks and promotes advocacy for breastfeeding families to ensure that they can access this life-saving resource. And this is a nice model that really describes HMBANA's role in the community and within milk banking. HMBANA serves member milk banks. So they serve us here at Western Great Lakes, and they serve milk banks all throughout North America so that milk banks can provide safe donor milk to the community and to the hospitals. And then babies receive donor milk. Some of those babies are in the hospital setting, and some of them are at home. All milk banks in HMBANA are accredited, and we have an accreditation certificate. In the United States, we're also registered as FDA food facilities, and that means that FDA inspectors come and inspect our facilities. We also are inspected by HMBANA auditors who come and look at our records, make sure that we are adhering to the standards and that we're operating at a very safe level. So we really are fortunate that we have a dual inspection kind of system where the FDA regulates us and inspects us, and Himbana also provides auditing and inspection services. And some of us are also inspected by our local health agencies. And so you can see here, like all of the records, kind of similar to like a joint commission visit where, you know, the staff prepares and gets all of the records in order for that auditor when they come to inspect the facility. And safety is really cornerstone of Himbana. So when Himbana started in 1985, they really were all about safety and setting safe standards for human milk banking. And if you think back to 1985, that makes a lot of sense. We were in the midst of the HIV epidemic and AIDS epidemic here. And so we needed to take safety measures like pasteurization and donor screening to ensure that our milk is safe for preterm infants. You can see here that we have a robust donor screening system that includes serological testing. So we blood test the mothers before they donate. We also are in frequent communication with our milk donors. And, you know, hats off to all of the amazing donor screeners that are out there at all of the nonprofit milk banks who have dedicated their lives to compassionate and comprehensive screening of our milk donors, who are really the superheroes in this story, who donate their milk to save tiny lives. We also get a medical release form from their provider, and we follow up frequently to check on any medications or changes in their health status. Donor milk processing is the next step. So after a donor is approved, we take her milk in and we process it and pasteurize it for safety. So here at our milk bank, we conduct pre-pasteurization microbial testing. We pool and mix for nutritional consistency and for safety. We bottle, we seal the bottles, and then we pasteurize. But before that, I wanted to show you our brand new human milk research laboratory, generously sponsored by Medela, which we are so thrilled about. So this is a brand new human milk research laboratory where we conduct our pre-pasteurization microbial testing. You can see two superstars here, Clara and Andrea, who test our milk, including all of our awesome lab techs here. And you can see some plates here in the lower left corner. So these are plates where we test for bacteria. And then in the upper right-hand corner, you can see a really cool image we took with one of our microscopes, looking at bacteria under the microscope. So we specialize in microbial testing here at Milkbank WGL, and we are about to launch some immunological research as well that we're really excited about. And we will keep you posted. So after that pre-pasteurization testing, we send the milk for pasteurization in our pasteurizing room. This deactivates bacteria and viruses while maintaining a ton of the awesome bioactive factors in human milk. After pasteurization, we test the milk again because we're all about testing and safety at Himbana Milk Banks. And many of us also conduct nutritional analysis where we look at calories, fat, carbohydrates, and protein to provide that information to our providers in the NICU to help them with clinical care. And you can see us testing and pasteurizing some milk here. So Holder pasteurization is an amazing way of keeping milk safe. It really is a cornerstone of safety at Himbana Milk Banks and at milk banks all throughout the world. This is a low temperature, long time method of pasteurization that deactivates those contaminants like bacteria and viruses while maintaining a ton of the bioactive factors that we'll see in a couple of slides. This is extensively researched, the most researched method of pasteurization that is available for human milk. We have research that demonstrates pathogen reduction with dozens of different types of pathogens, both viral and bacterial. We have dozens of studies that demonstrate retained activity and concentration of bioactive factors. We also have a bunch of studies that demonstrate clinical safety and efficacy, which is really key. So a landmark study was just published in 2024 by Dr. Khaleesi's research group. There were many sites involved in this study. this demonstrated that when preterm babies are fed donor milk, their risk of necrotizing enterocolitis is decreased by 50% compared to those infants that are fed preterm formula. So Holder pasteurization provides a safe, high-quality product that reduces the risk of NEC by 50%. I've been to a lot of conferences. I've met a lot of you at different conferences all over the country and the world. And occasionally I hear about alternative methods of pasteurization, which do seem interesting. But I am a firm believer that Holder pasteurization really is the safest, best way to pasteurize milk. In addition to retaining a ton of bioactive factors, this is such a safe method because every single bottle is pasteurized completely. That means the bottle is pasteurized as well as the milk inside the bottle, which really has led to unparalleled safety. Again, not a single safety event in the past 40 years. So we're really proud of Holder pasteurization. This is a great method for heat treating milk for safety. And we know that Holder pasteurization is superior to other methods of human milk pasteurization, like retort processed milk. Retort processed milk uses really high pressure to sterilize the milk product, which results in a shelf-stable pouch type of milk. So these milk products are sold in pouches, similar to like, an applesauce pouch or a juice pouch or something like that. The unfortunate thing about this method is that high pressure completely obliterates some of the protective bioactive factors in human milk, like lysozyme and secretory IgA. So you can see here that pasteurized donor human milk does a great job of retaining more lysozyme and secretory IgA compared to that shelf-stable process. In addition, I'm not aware of any clinical studies that demonstrate safety and efficacy of shelf-stable pouch milk. So Holder pasteurized milk really is a great product to use in your NICUs for your premature babies that has a ton of research backing it up. And that's really important, especially when we're looking to reduce those rates of necrotizing enterocolitis. And at the end of the day, babies have 3 feeding choices. I'm from Chicago. As much as I would love to give my babies, some deep dish pizza to eat, unfortunately, they can't eat that. They can only have milk. So our options, and certainly the number one option, is mom's milk. And parental milk is absolutely key. We have 100% of everything that we need in that milk. There's also really cool interactions with the microbiome and the antigens, combining with the moms and the babies, which hopefully I'll present in a future presentation about the biology of human milk. So this is a dynamic process that's been shaped by millions of years of evolution. We really need to promote maternal breast milk, and everything that you guys do every day supporting these moms is critical. So thank you for supporting these parents and helping them achieve their breastfeeding goals, because this is a public health imperative. We can see over on the right that formula doesn't have these bioactive factors. It does not have any antibodies. It does not have the type of oligosaccharides that we need to support that healthy microbiome. In addition, formula is a highly processed food. So the feeding choice is clear. Mom's milk is number 1. If we don't have access to mom's milk, donor milk is number 2, especially for those premature babies in the NICU. It really is life-saving. And then if we don't have access to either one of those, then formula is a feeding choice. This is a brand new study that just came out in 2025 that demonstrates that epidermal growth factor and IgA, which is a major antibody in human milk, are retained really well after pasteurization. So what we're looking at is the blue. So we can see here that maternal milk has certain levels of epidermal growth factor that are similar to the levels in the donor milk that is provided to babies in the NICU that is Holder pasteurized. I do want to call out this group in the black here. These are research samples of individual donors. So this is not donor milk that is going out to the NICUs. These were specifically research samples. And this demonstrates the power of pooling, what, Himbana milk banks are doing to improve the nutritional and immunological quality of the milk. And we can see here that formula doesn't have, levels of epidermal growth factor or IgA that are appropriate for the baby. So this really provides great support for Holder pasteurization and for giving those critical bioactive factors to our babies through donor milk if we don't have access to maternal milk, because donor milk is a formula substitute. Milk banks pasteurize milk, and we come in every day to work so that we can provide an alternative for formula for those very low birth weight infants who really need human milk to thrive and to grow. And we know that nutrition shapes the microbiome. This is probably one of the most important reasons, to promote breastfeeding and to promote human milk feeding is to protect that microbiome. We know that this is linked to disease, not only in infancy, but throughout the lifespan. A brand new research study just came out kind of trying to shed light on the increased incidence of colon cancer in young adults, which has doubled in the past few decades. And this new emerging research is pointing to the microbiome. And so when we think about infant nutrition and that first food for babies, it is really critical that these babies receive human milk so that they can, thrive in infancy and really beyond. When we think about autoimmune disorders, types of cancer, the importance of the microbiome cannot be understated. And so this is a study that looks at the microbiome between infants that are fed donor human milk in blue, mom's milk in red, and then formula in yellow. And this is a PCA analysis. So the way that this statistical kind of portrayal of data is organized is that the microbial communities and groups of species, depending on if it's at the species level or what levels it's at, are grouped by color, and you can see how close they are in space, demonstrates how close they are with these bacterial communities. So you can see that the bacterial communities in the microbiome of infants that are fed donor milk more closely resembles that of the infants that are fed mother's milk. And then when you look at formula, that microbiome is very different. So this kind of is just a nice scientific demonstration of how human milk and how donor milk is more similar to that microbiome of those maternal milk fed babies, which is really important. This is from the same paper, and this looks at the actual function of the bacteria inside of the baby's stomach and GI system. So what you can see here is a bunch of different KEGG pathways. This is what bacteria do inside of our bodies. The bacteria inside of our guts help us for the most part. We like that, the probacteria, right? Those bacterial communities that form an ecosystem that keep us healthy. And they do a lot of work. They're hard workers. They are working to metabolize certain things that we need in our body. So you can see these KEGG pathways, and something should jump out to you right away, which is the group that's in the middle is different than the two groups on the outside. So in pretty much every single one of these analyses, you can see that the donor human milk group in red more closely resembles that of the maternal milk in gray, and the formula group is completely different. So the actual function of the bacteria inside of these babies is different when these babies are fed formula. The bacteria are not doing the same things. These are different bacterial communities. They're not constructing that ecosystem the way that we want them to. It's not the natural state for the baby's microbiome. And this is a fun cartoon of the infant's microbiome, just to give you another view. So we can see the pink fluffy, at the bottom here, this is the baby's epithelial lining of their gut. So we're in the intestine, and this is the intestinal lining. The dark area in the back is the gut lumen. So this is where the milk or formula, moves through the infant's GI system. we could see that this is a breastfed infant's microbiome. So we have a nice community of organisms here. You can see all of them hanging out together. We can see that there's a human milk oligosaccharide that is an awesome food source for the probacteria, the good bacteria like this purple bifidobacterium. We can also see that there's human milk secretory IgA, which has a major role in shaping and promoting gut homeostasis and microbiome health. For so many different ways. It can enchain and bind bacteria, harmful bacteria like that E. coli that's hanging out. It can also potentially serve as parts of it as a food source for the bacteria. So we're unraveling all of the really cool functions of secretory IgA, which is only found in mom's milk and donor milk. Formula does not have secretory IgA. So what happens when the breastfed baby doesn't have access to human milk? We can see here that the microbiome looks very different. We can see that there's a decrease in microbial diversity, so there's less numbers of bacteria. There could be a predominance of pathogenic bacteria like this particular E. coli. We also see we don't have access to oligosaccharides or secretory IgA, and so this is a very different microbiome. This is critical for preterm infants because there are over a dozen studies that show that microbial dysbiosis or disruptions in the microbiome that are marked by decreased microbial diversity are correlated with an increased risk of necrotizing enterocolitis. So it's really crucial that we understand the infant's microbiome and that we help promote that microbiome homeostasis by providing human milk to these babies. And so if we don't have access to maternal milk, we can use donor milk as a form of restoration ecology. This was one of my favorite courses in grad school. We got to go out to native prairies here in the state of Illinois to learn about how to restore the natural ecosystem and the natural habitat. Using donor milk can help restore the natural habitat when we don't have access to maternal milk. So just like the prairie in my backyard that attracts, bees and beautiful butterflies and is healthy, that's what we need for our infants' microbiomes. And we can do that with human milk. And we need to remember that formula is an ultra-processed food. This is a really great resource. You guys can click on this link from the handouts. This is the NOVA classification for processed foods. And there's 4 groups. Group 4 is the most highly processed, which is an ultra-processed food. These are formulations of ingredients, mostly of exclusive industrial use, typically created by a series of industrial techniques and processes. And formula is really an excellent example of an ultra-processed food because there are many ingredients that are in formula, and some of them are not found in nature. Some of them have been invented in a laboratory for wide-scale, massive food production to add, a certain level of carbohydrate or protein or for some other function. And so there's artificial sugars. There are a lot of highly processed artificial components in formula. So we need to remember this. In this particular report, they included studies that showed kind of the increased risk of non-communicable diseases when children, adolescents, and adults are fed a higher proportion of ultra-processed foods and highly processed foods. 2 of those studies included children, school-age children, and they found increased cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, and waist circumference with the higher proportion of highly processed foods. What they omitted from this report, which I will be reaching out to them with a request, is if they could include information on the studies that demonstrate the higher risk of both communicable and non-communicable diseases when infants are fed ultra-processed formula instead of human milk. Luckily, the American Academy of Pediatrics has already summarized this research in their 2022 policy statement. So they did a fantastic job really highlighting, researching the data, looking at epidemiological studies, pulling this data together to summarize the impact of what happens when infants are fed a highly ultra-processed food that contains artificial ingredients instead of milk, instead of human milk. We can see here significant decrease in risk when infants are fed human milk with mortality. And that should be very striking for all of us as healthcare providers. This is a public health imperative, an initiative that we need to continue to work on so that we can have healthier infants. I also want to call your attention to the increased risk of Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. Take a look at this. The percent lower risk when infants are breastfed for 12 months is 80% for both Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. These are inflammatory bowel diseases that have really a devastating impact on patients. I think all of us know someone who suffers with Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis. And you can have an 80% reduction in these conditions if babies have access to human milk. This is huge. This is, I believe, a direct result of, the exposure to an ultra-processed food in infancy, the impact on the microbiome, the resulting inflammatory cascade can devastate, can just absolutely devastate someone when they contract Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis. And so I really applaud the AAP for putting this information out there for us and for also, amending their recommendation to support families with their breastfeeding goals for 2 years or beyond. Because some of these conditions, you can see that the duration of breastfeeding is directly linked to the decreased risks that we see. Oh gosh, this is one of my favorite studies. So you guys definitely need to access this Science Journal article from Broden in 2022, and all of the references are included at the end of the presentation in the slides. This is such a great study that looked at immune microbe interactions in early life. It's exactly what we're talking about with the importance of the microbiome. So I will turn that over, but basically the increased rates and risk of ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, diabetes, autoimmune disease, inflammatory disease that we see in high-income developed countries, this researcher believes could be linked to an evolutionary mismatch. Instead of adhering to our natural diet and the natural world that we evolved in over 200,000 years as humans, we are now replacing human milk with a highly ultra-processed food product. We're eating ultra-processed foods throughout our lifespan. We're exposed to microplastics and toxins and all sorts of stuff. And this evolutionary mismatch, it could be responsible and could be a driving force behind why we see this these higher rates of inflammatory diseases. And he really gives a beautiful explanation of this kind of theory in this paper. And this is, oh, you know what? I did not include the photo, but on my next speech, I will. So I definitely encourage you to check this out. He does talk about breastfeeding, which I really like. He talks about the importance of secretory IgA and how the human milk oligosaccharides feed the bacteria. And he really gives a great explanation for how breastfeeding in infancy could be linked to lifelong disease and immune programming. So it's a great read. Because we know that nutrition shapes the microbiome. We know that mom's milk contains microbiota, right? Contains that bacteria that can help seed that baby's stomach. Unfortunately, that is lost during pasteurization. And formula may contain a probiotic or two, but neither one of those really compares to mom's milk that has its own unique microbiome. The human milk oligosaccharides are critically important, which are 100% retained with Holder pasteurization. Secretory IgA, and then a ton of abiotic factors like pH and osmolality. Of course, the fatty acids and the growth factors, which we just learned about, how epidermal growth factor is retained after pasteurization. And so this is why donor milk is absolutely critical in the NICU. We need to support those babies' microbiomes, not only for just immediate survival and to decrease the risk of NEC, but to give them the best start in life so that they can, reduce their risk of inflammatory conditions later on in life. And this is truly life-saving for premature infants. Donor milk is easy to digest. It's well absorbed, very low rates of feeding intolerance. It's great for some kids with renal issues or cardiac issues, and it promotes a healthy microbiome. And so our goal is 100% utilization of donor milk in the NICU when we don't have access to mom's milk. This is a study from 2020 that the CDC published looking at the availability of donor milk in hospitals. So this represents the number of hospitals that have a donor milk program. So I want you guys to look and see where your state is, and then look at that little key to see where you're at. Here in Illinois, we are above 90%. Wisconsin's 100%, which is amazing. Super proud of our Packers fans up north who are beating us. And so it's a competition, guys. So we need your help to get every single state to 100%. And just put a poll up for everyone. For those of you who work in a hospital with a NICU or who work closely with the hospital that has a NICU, does your hospital offer donor milk to your patients? So submit your vote and we will see what our answers are and what the percentages after the presentation. Donor milk can also be used outside of the NICU setting. So we stated our goals 100% in the NICU, but we also want to provide donor milk for those kids in the cardiac unit, those kids with formula intolerance, GI conditions. I think donor milk is critical when you're working with families with failure to thrive. It's easily digested and well tolerated, and it can help establish a positive relationship with the family if they're averse to formula. It can also be used for those cases of severe reflux. You can really trial and pilot donor milk for kids with feeding issues to see if it helps. It's also used in special care nurseries and postpartum units for hypoglycemia, jaundice, weight loss. And there's some data that it increases exclusive breastfeeding rates at discharge and at 6 months, which is really amazing. So you're sending that message of how critically important human milk is, and you're supporting moms with their breastfeeding goals and their desire not to expose their infants to formula. And donor milk is great for hypoglycemia. This is a study from 2020 that looked at the difference between formula and donor milk after the use of gel for infants with low blood glucose. And you can see here that both formula and donor milk are effective in raising blood glucose, which I think is really important. You can see that here in the graph. So the only reason the breastfed group is a little bit lower is because it's a volume issue, right? We know that right after delivery, which is usually when we need to start giving the gel and assessing for hypoglycemia, that mom's colostrum is in a little bit of a smaller quantity. So that is why we are a little bit lower with the blood glucose here. But we can see that the donor milk fed babies do really well with their glucose after they receive donor milk as a supplement. Donor milk is also used in the outpatient setting. I mean, we take care of a lot of families with critical need for donor milk here at the milk bank. Children with spinal muscular atrophy, with severe formula intolerance, kidney disease, and a lot of children waiting on the transplant list who have feeding intolerance. So there are a lot of reasons why donor milk is used in the outpatient setting. And spinal muscular atrophy is an interesting case study. This is a genetic disorder that affects the motor neuron. These children have a lot of gut issues with decreased peristalsis and poor gastric motility. Severe reflux is common. Many of them require fundoplication surgery. And so donor milk offers a source of fat that's easily absorbed because so many of these kids have malabsorption. And so this survey from Davis from 2014 shows that families reported continued use of donor milk due to formula intolerance, even beyond the baby's first birthday. And so this may be medically necessary for some children with spinal muscular atrophy. And I'm going to switch gears now. We had a lot of fun talking about the microbiome and the clinical uses for donor milk, but at nonprofit milk banks, milk banking is more than milk. It really is about that community support, especially for families who donate milk after loss. And so many milk banks do a great job with this. Here at our milk bank, we have Poppy's Dream Bereavement Memorial. And you can see our beautiful mural where we invite families to come hang their child's star with their name and their birth date. And you can see here the siblings come and the families come to honor their baby. And we're really just very inspired by all of the families that come in to participate in Poppy's Dream. Because it's really all about legacy. Legacy is what one leaves behind for their family, friends, and certainly for the parents of these babies. You can see here, this is a clip from a Chicago Tribune article about one of our bereavement donors who shared the breast milk of life. She donated thousands of ounces to babies in the Midwest to honor her baby, Melinda, who has a very special place in our hearts here at the Milk Bank. It's about making meaning. Making meaning is the unique way that we interpret and make sense of our world. This is really important in palliative care, especially pediatric palliative care, so that we want to construct meaning after loss. And milk donation is one way of doing that. You can see that Melinda's mom said that her milk went to NICUs all over the Midwest, and she helped so many sick babies. It's about ritual. It's about packing the milk. It's about coming here to the milk bank once a year for our annual candle lighting ceremony. So milk donation is a way to heal and a way to process grief. This is a great study from 2022. I encourage all of you to scan this QR code. A beautiful story lifting up the voices of mothers who donate after loss. These are the major research themes. A lot of moms report still feeling like a mother. They report support and recognition from milk bank staff. And you can see here one of our participants. I loved being able to go to their office, to see my son's star up on the sky in the mural. It just felt very honoring of my son. And these are two additional quotes from moms who have donated after loss. It's so compelling. Everyone really does need to read this because we need to offer milk donation as a choice. It's certainly not right for every single mom, but we have heard from parents who were not offered that choice and who do have negative feelings associated with not learning about the option to donate milk after loss. After reading some of these stories, I was really interested in how a lot of the moms reported a physical relief, a physical comfort in donating. And it made me think about all of the physical aspect of breastfeeding for moms. We are very laser focused on the babies, but breastfeeding offers health benefits for moms. And when a mom chooses to pump and donate after loss, she's able to see some of these health benefits, potentially decreases in cancers and different metabolic diseases, especially diabetes. So I think this is really compelling. Moms report almost like a sense of relief, a sense of comfort when they're pumping. And this is the normal physiologic kind of approach. This is what would normally happen after a baby is born. And so I thought that was really interesting, sharing that concept of physical healing as well as emotional healing. And this is about incorporating meaning and legacy. So there's so many things that you guys can do to help these moms. You can offer to take pictures of the milk so they can save that as a memento Ask if they would like to take a bottle home. Some of these moms, they save the bottles in their freezer as a memento of the gift of how their baby shared milk with other babies to help. You can describe, Poppy's dream, or work with your local milk bank and find out how they support and help bereavement parents. Some milk banks have beautiful trees or quilts or other types of art installations or programs to support and honor these babies' legacies. And at nonprofit milk banks, in addition to supporting bereavement moms and all of our donors, which are really amazing women that go the extra mile to donate milk, we're also really invested in equity to ensure that every baby can access this life-saving resource. Himbana has great tools on their website. This is a free download from himbana.org that talks about equitable access to donor milk. For milk banks, but also for healthcare institutions, hospitals, clinics. So definitely go to Himbana's website and download a copy. We also have the best practice publication that is now available. And this is a great resource for storing and handling human milk in the hospital setting, as well as in home and childcare setting. And there's so many ways that you guys can partner with your local nonprofit milk bank. Number one, refer milk donors to save tiny lives. You can refer outpatients who have a clear medical need for donor milk. You can support bereavement donors and offer bereavement donation as a choice. Provide, education about the importance of donor milk. Talk about the microbiome. Parents love hearing about that stuff, about the science of human milk. You can volunteer, donate money to your nonprofit milk bank or Himbana, attend events. There's so many things to do. We are all nonprofit, and we're all in this together to improve infant outcomes, to save lives, to engage with our community and support families. So thank you for partnering with us to do this important work. And if you want a real behind the scenes at a milk bank, you guys need to come to our Himbana International Conference next year, April 20th and 21st, 2026, at the beautiful Lowe's in Rosemont, which is right by O'Hare Airport and very close to downtown. We will have a bash at the bank here at Milk Bank WGL, and you can see our pasteurizing room. You can see our beautiful Poppy's Dream community room that is just filled with baby stars. It's really stunning. We would love to welcome you to the milk bank, so please save this date. And I'm going to close with the message of gratitude, of course, for all of the amazing milk bankers around the world that process and screen donors to save tiny lives. I also want to thank all of you for the work that you do taking care of families and helping moms achieve their breastfeeding goals. I want to thank Medela for hosting this educational webinar. This has been a ton of fun getting to know you guys and getting to spend time with you. I hope to see you at the Himbana conference and at future lactation events and educational sessions. And I really want to share an immense amount of gratitude for our milk donors, the generous superhero moms that make all of this possible, that share their milk. They're not paid for this. They truly donate to save tiny lives. And they are the heroes of the story. So thank you. I know some of you watching may have donated your milk, so thank you. And we do have a bunch of fun references at the end for you guys to review for some fun summer reading coming up. And with that, I will turn it over to Jess for questions and answers as soon as I stop sharing my screen.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Summer. This was such an insightful presentation, and that last picture was truly just a beautiful ending to your presentation. So we're going to start now with answering questions submitted during the presentation, but as a reminder, you can still submit questions through the Questions tab. There have been a few questions about the handouts, and again, just a reminder, at the bottom right of your screen, there is an Apps tab. And if you click on that, there will be a handout section and you can download the available handouts. So we did do the mandatory poll question. Do you offer donor milk to your patients in the NICU? And unfortunately, I didn't add a third option before the poll went live. So 80% of our attendees selected yes, but since this was mandatory, some of those participants that are on our webinar today may not work in the NICU setting, and that may not be a fully accurate percentage.
For next time, now we know. But
That's
80% is pretty good. Our goal's 100%. So we have some work to do, but that's really interesting. I'm glad to hear that 80% said yes.
yes. So our first question that we have today, someone has asked, how long does the pasteurization process take?
Yeah, so the actual heating process takes 30 minutes. There's, a warm up process and then a cooling process. The milk is frozen after pasteurization, but the actual holder pasteurization is 30 minutes.
Wonderful. So the next question we have is donor milk covered by insurance?
Oh, that's a good question. That was one of my sample questions. That is really good. So that depends on the state that you are practicing in. Every state has different insurance coverage laws on the books. For example, here in the state of Illinois, we have a really great law that mandates insurance and Medicaid coverage of donor milk through the child's first birthday for outpatients, as well as inpatients. So that does vary quite a bit state to state. So reach out to your local milk bank to see what the legislation is in your state. That's really helpful information, especially if you're going to be referring outpatients.
Wonderful. That's great
And right now,
information.
about half of the states do have a law mandating some type of insurance coverage. So we still have some ways to go, but I believe over half of the states currently have some type of coverage.
So the next question that came through, do all milk banks use glass bottles for processing and shipment?
That's a great question. No, actually, most milk banks use plastic bottles. There are a few milk banks that use glass bottles, so it just kind of depends on preference, hospital preference as well. But both of those are great options to deliver pasteurized donor human milk.
Excellent. These are great questions coming in. So the next question that we have, someone says that they work in a postpartum unit and they have donor milk available in the NICU, but not yet for their area, and was wondering if you have any recommendations of how that can get set up for non-NICU babies or the benefits that it may have.
Yeah, I think that definitely partnering with your local nonprofit milk bank to see what's available. In some regions of the country, there are kind of like pickup sites for outpatients. So here in Illinois and Wisconsin, we have, dozens of places, pharmacies or clinics where parents can go pick up donor milk in the community. So that's one great option if there's a dispensary or pickup station near you. Another great idea is to reach out to the milk bank to see if they offer outpatient milk and what types of services they offer for those kiddos that are going home.
Great. So that kind of segues into the next question about, do milk banks have prioritization guidelines?
Yes, yeah, we do. So all milk banks under HIMBANA are required to prioritize milk for the NICU first. So all of our, supply is earmarked for the NICU, and then any excess milk can go out to the community, can go to those dispensaries and healthy babies at home. I will say that a lot of the larger milk banks, like our milk bank here at Great Lakes, we have an abundant supply of milk. So we're able, luckily, to serve all of the NICUs, all of the mother baby units, and also babies at home with medical need, or those babies that just need a couple bottles until, mom's full milk supply has been established. So donor milk is a great bridge, especially in those first few days after delivery. You may only need to use 1 or 2 bottles, and then you can avoid formula, support that microbiome, and really support mom's breastfeeding efforts.
These have been such great questions coming in. So as a reminder to our attendees, we still have about 10 minutes in the Q&A session. So please keep your questions coming. Anything else that you can think of while we wait for a question to come in, Summer?
Yeah, I think that, because our attendees are all over the country, just can't, understate the importance of reaching out to your local nonprofit milk bank, see what materials they have available. They may be able to send you some flyers or brochures about donation, bereavement donation, outpatient coverage. It's always good to know exactly what types of services your local nonprofit milk bank offers so that you can provide that education and those consulting services to your patients.
Wonderful. So we have a comment that you've worked with one of our attendees and let them know that a drug-exposed infant that they were working with could receive donor milk by insurance. And now that baby is getting donor milk and doing very well. So a thank you to you for that work. And then our next questions that has come in is about the cost for the hospital per ounce with donor human milk.
Yeah, that ranges, all throughout the country. I'm so glad you brought this up because it wasn't in my presentation. This is a really important concept. So donor milk is one of the most affordable therapeutic agents that you can find in the NICU. There's no question about that. So, whether it's $4.50 an ounce or $6 an ounce, wherever that range is, if you're getting that milk from a nonprofit milk bank, it's priced very low because one of our goals is to support hospitals. We are partners with the hospital. We are not profit agencies, we're nonprofits. So we can keep costs low to support our hospital partners so that they can provide donor milk to their patients. I will say that donor milk is generally much more affordable than adult trays, on the mother baby unit. I mean, we don't really think about the cost of nutrition in the hospital for pediatric patients or adult patients. We make sure that they get their trays. Those trays are about $10 each, depending on where, they could be much more, depending on your practice setting. But at $30 a day, you can feed almost every baby in the NICU for less than $30 a day, individual babies. So donor milk generally is incredibly affordable. There's a couple cost analyses. The last one we did, which needs to be updated, we had an average of, for the entire NICU stay, $366 per baby. That's just astounding that you can provide a therapeutic nutritional item that decreases the risk of a very dangerous disease by 50%, and that it costs under $500. It's remarkable. So donor milk is incredibly affordable, and just really, I really concerned when hospitals use that as a barrier because it is very affordable, and we need to jump over that barrier and jump over that hurdle to get those babies donor milk.
Great. Thank you, Summer. Well, we have two more questions that have come in, and I think they may put us to the end of our time. So the first question is, do you have any information on growth rates with donor human milk as opposed to mother's own milk?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I was recently at the European Milk Banking Association, and one of the neonatologists had a really great slide where he put up all of the studies that looked at this. There were some studies that showed decreased growth, and there were a lot of studies, especially the more recent studies, that don't show a difference in growth. So I think that there's no question mother's milk is number one, especially for those preterm babies. It's, that preterm early milk is loaded with protein and immune factors. So we really need to prioritize that. But we do have good growth with infants who receive pasteurized donor human milk. In fact, the Khaleesi study that I mentioned referenced that the growth was better than previously published studies. So we have pretty good growth, which is really important because those preterm babies really need to accelerate their growth in that postpartum period.
Thanks, Summer. So the last one asks about the number of milk banks that exist nationwide. Do you know how many there are? And do we have states that don't have access to donor milk banks?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah. So Himbana has 33 milk banks. 28 of them are in the United States, and all 50 states are completely fully serviced with donor milk. So that means that we, ship milk just like we ship milk to Southern Illinois and to Wisconsin. We can ship milk, and all milk banks ship milk across state lines. So all 50 states have access to donor milk. And we do have an abundant supply of donor milk for the NICU. In fact, several, surveys that we've done at Himbana and leadership meetings have established that we have enough donor milk for every single NICU in the country. So definitely a great question, and just want to put that message out that every single state is being served, and we have an abundant supply for all NICU babies.
That's fantastic.
Can I touch on one that just flashed up about the difference in growth between formula and donor milk fed babies? Oh man, we don't have enough time because there's only 6 minutes left, but this is really, really important to know that infants that are fed an ultra processed food like formula that has corn syrup solids and other artificial components are going to have increased growth compared to human milk. And that's mother's milk and donor milk. Our goal should not be a non-physiologic growth curve. We really need to understand this. When we're talking about growth, we're talking about the growth that we see with mom's milk, right? That is our gold standard. And so comparing donor milk fed babies to formula milk fed babies is not helpful. It's not physiological. It's not, scientifically appropriate. So we really need to focus on using human milk as that standard for growth for all babies. And I need you guys' help, please, because I hear this all the time. So I want all of you, when we talk to doctors and nurses and parents and providers, we need to understand that the growth we're looking for is the human milk standard, and that we're not trying to compete against an artificial substance. I mean, if you really think about it, some of these corn syrup solids are fed to livestock to fatten them up. These are the same types of materials that are included in artificial ultra processed formula products, and that's not the type of growth that we're looking for.
I'm glad you caught that and added that in. That's fantastic information to add. Someone had just asked the reference that you made about the growth with human milk or donor human milk versus mom's own milk and versus formula. Is that in your reference list in the handout?
No, I did not talk about that. There's quite a few studies about that. I would have to put together a review. Maybe that could be a future presentation.
That's a great topic for a future webinar. Excellent. Well, this is, I think we've covered all of the questions that are in here. Thank you everyone who has submitted questions to us and participated in today's webinar. And thank you, Summer, for attending and being our speaker in the Hot Topics in Human Milk Banking. So once we leave today's webinar, you will be redirected to a survey about the session. We really appreciate you taking the time to complete it and value your feedback. You're also going to receive an email with a link to view today's webinar recording. So on behalf of Medila's Medical Affairs team and our presenter, we want to thank you for joining us today and hope to see you at a future webinar. So have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Jess. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.